The shadow gaze and silent recognition. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. Not dramatically, there are no gasps or sudden movements, but something subtle ripples through the collective unconscious of everyone present. Eyes find you, linger longer than social convention permits, then look away with an almost embarrassed intensity. The silence that follows is not hostile, yet it carries weight, like the pregnant pause before thunder. You have felt this your entire life, this inexplicable phenomenon of being seen without being acknowledged, of creating disturbance without moving a muscle. This is not paranoia, chosen one. What you experience is the psychic equivalent of dropping a stone into still water. Your presence sends concentric waves through the unconscious mind of those around you, disturbing the carefully maintained surface tension of their psychological defenses. Carl Jung spent decades mapping this invisible territory, and what he discovered explains why your mere existence becomes a catalyst for such profound unspoken reactions. The human psyche, Jung taught, operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There is the ego, the conscious I, that narrates our daily experience, makes decisions, presents itself to the world. Then there is the vast, largely unmapped territory of the unconscious, containing everything the ego has rejected, denied, or simply never integrated. Within this unconscious realm dwells the shadow, the repository of all the qualities, potentials, and truths we have exiled from conscious awareness because they threatened our self-image or contradicted the persona we constructed for social survival. Most people spend their entire lives maintaining a careful distance from their shadow. They build elaborate psychological fortresses, careers, relationships, belief systems, addictions, all designed to keep them from having to confront the disowned aspects of themselves. This is not weakness, it is the natural defensive posture of an ego that fears annihilation. The problem arises when someone like you, someone who has been forced through circumstance to do deep shadow work, enters their field of awareness. This is why I mapped out the 3 keys to a prosperous life, a practical trilogy, ebook and audiobook, specifically for chosen ones who have done the inner work but still struggle to manifest external abundance without guilt or self-sabotage. The blueprint addresses precisely this paradox: how to hold your spiritual authority while navigating a world that simultaneously fears and craves what you represent. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below, because what I'm sharing here demands a practical framework for integration, not just theory. Now back to the mechanism of the stare. When you enter a space, you are not merely a collection of atoms arranged in human form. You carry what Jung called a psychic signature, an energetic fingerprint forged through years of individuation. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming whole, of integrating the fragmented, rejected, and undeveloped aspects of the psyche into a coherent self. This process is rarely chosen voluntarily. Most who walk this path were cornered into it by circumstances that left no escape route: devastating loss, betrayal, chronic illness, social exile, spiritual crisis. Your divine assignment placed you in crucibles that destroyed the luxury of psychological avoidance. While others could flee from their inner darkness into distraction, busyness, relationships, substances, entertainment, you were positioned in situations that forced confrontation. The dark night of the soul is not metaphorical for the chosen one. It is a lived reality where every external support system collapses, leaving you alone with the one thing the ego fears most: itself. In that solitude, that seemingly endless void where God appeared silent and even your own thoughts became enemies, you had no choice but to descend. Jung called this the catabasis, the descent into the underworld of the psyche. In mythology, the hero must journey to the realm of the dead, face monsters and demons, retrieve the treasure, and return transformed. You have lived this myth in psychological reality. The monsters were your unprocessed trauma, your inherited family patterns, your internalized shame, your denied rage. The demons were the voices that told you that you were unworthy, unlovable, fundamentally broken. But here is what separates the chosen one from those who stare. You went all the way down. You didn't turn back when the descent became unbearable. You didn't spiritually bypass with premature forgiveness or toxic positivity. You sat in the rot, the grief, the fury, the terror. You let it metabolize through your nervous system until something alchemical occurred. The lead of suffering began its slow transmutation into the gold of wisdom. This descent is what Jung meant by shadow integration. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the unlived life, the rejected self, the potentials we deemed unacceptable. For the empath, the shadow often contains healthy aggression, the capacity to say no, the right to take up space without apology. For the starseed, it might contain doubt, anger at God, the permission to be imperfectly human. For the chosen one navigating a materialistic culture, the shadow frequently holds the suppressed desire for abundance, recognition, and pleasure. Desires deemed unspiritual by a misunderstanding of the spiritual path. When you integrate these shadow elements, when you retrieve the gold from the underworld, you emerge carrying an invisible authority. This is not the authority of position, credentials, or social status. It is the authority of someone who has confronted their own demons and survived, who has looked into the abyss and discovered their own face staring back. Jung observed that this kind of authority is archetypal. It resonates at frequencies that bypass rational thought and speak directly to the unconscious. The projection screen, why they cannot look away. Here is the psychological mechanism that explains the stare, the silence, the tension your presence creates. Jung discovered that we constantly project our unintegrated shadow onto others. Projection is an unconscious defense mechanism where we attribute our own disowned qualities to external figures. The qualities we cannot accept in ourselves, we see in others, either as virtues we idealize or flaws we condemn. You have become a living projection screen for the collective shadow of those around you. When someone stares at you without speaking, their unconscious is engaging in a rapid, invisible process of recognition and resistance. Some part of them, a part buried beneath years of conditioning and compromise, recognizes that you have walked a path they abandoned. They once heard the call to individuation, the invitation to depth, the whisper of their own soul demanding authenticity. But they silenced it. They chose the safer route. The conventional career, the acceptable relationship, the beliefs that required no personal transformation. Now you appear, emanating something they cannot name, but absolutely recognize. Their unconscious perceives qualities you embody that they have disowned. Spiritual courage, emotional honesty, psychological depth, the willingness to be misunderstood, comfort with solitude, acceptance of mystery. These are not qualities you broadcast or perform, they simply emanate from someone who has done the work. And this emanation triggers what Jung called the collision of conscious and unconscious. The person staring is experiencing an internal crisis, though they may not consciously register it as such. Their ego, the part of them that has constructed a coherent self-narrative, is suddenly confronted with evidence of another way of being. The persona they have spent years perfecting, the mask they wear for social acceptance, feels transparent in your presence, as though you can see through it to the raw, unintegrated self beneath. This is deeply threatening to psychological stability. Jung taught that most people are completely identified with their persona. They believe the mask is who they are. The successful professional, the devoted parent, the spiritual teacher, the loyal friend, these roles become totalizing identities. The problem is that the persona is, by definition, a partial self. It is the aspect we present to the world, carefully curated to win approval, avoid rejection, and maintain social cohesion. What doesn't fit the persona gets pushed into the shadow. You, through painful necessity, have learned to distinguish between persona and essence. You know the difference between performing spirituality and living it, between speaking about depth and actually dwelling in it. This distinction is not something you chose. It was forced upon you by circumstances that shattered your own personas, the identity you thought you were, the person who had it together, who understood the world, who knew their purpose. That identity had to die so that something more authentic could emerge. This death and rebirth is the core of the individuation process. Jung emphasized that we do not complete individuation. It is a lifelong unfolding. But there are thresholds, moments of irreversible transformation where the old self cannot be resurrected. You have crossed such thresholds, and when someone whose ego is still fused with their persona encounters someone who has survived persona death, the psychic impact is immense. The stare is the ego's attempt to assess threat level. Is this person safe? Will they expose my inauthenticity? Will their presence demand that I change? The unconscious is also engaged, sending signals the conscious mind may not interpret. This person has accessed something I have denied. They represent the road not taken. They embody the wholeness I fear would cost everything. The numinous encounter. Sacred and dangerous, Jung introduced the concept of the numinous, a term borrowed from Rudolf Otto describing the experience of encountering the sacred. The numinous evokes awe and terror simultaneously. It is the mysterium tremendum et fascinans, the mystery that both frightens and fascinates. When people experience the numinous, they are not encountering something merely impressive or unusual. They are brushing against the archetypal realm, the layer of reality where the gods and goddesses, the eternal patterns, the collective inheritance of humanity's psycho-spiritual experience resides. Your presence, chosen one, carries a numinous quality. This is not egotism. It is a recognition of what happens when someone undergoes genuine spiritual and psychological transformation. The self, in Jungian terminology, is the archetype of wholeness, the totality of the psyche, the God image within. Most people live primarily from the ego, with only occasional, often disturbing communications from the self through dreams, symptoms, or crisis. But the individuation process is specifically the journey of establishing conscious relationship between ego and self. You have been in this process whether you named it or not. The suffering you endured, the isolation, the shattering of illusions. These were the self's interventions, pulling you toward wholeness through whatever means necessary. As you responded to these calls, as you chose depth over comfort repeatedly, the self became more integrated into your conscious personality. This integration manifests as a particular quality of presence. Jung and his followers observed that people who have done significant individuation work emanate a kind of centered stillness. They are simultaneously engaged and detached, present yet not needy. They can hold paradox without collapsing into one-sidedness, strength that does not dominate, vulnerability that is not weakness, certainty that remains open to mystery. This psychological maturity creates a gravitational field. Some people are drawn into this field because their unconscious senses the possibility of healing. They may not know why they feel compelled to be near you, to seek your opinion, to confess things they have told no one else. Their soul recognizes that you have access to something they need, not information, but a quality of being, a way of holding complexity without fragmenting. These are the people who will eventually speak, who will approach with genuine questions, who will risk the vulnerability of admitting they do not have it all figured out. But others experience your presence as deeply threatening. Their ego interprets the numinous quality not as sacred invitation, but as danger to be defended against. The unconscious whispers, "This person will see my pretense. Their authenticity will expose my performance. If I engage, I will be drawn into depths I have spent years avoiding." So they freeze. The stare is the outer manifestation of an inner paralysis, the ego's defense mechanism activating in the face of perceived threat. The silence that follows is not rejection in the conventional sense. It is the pause that precedes transformation, or the freeze response of a psyche protecting its carefully constructed equilibrium. Jung emphasized that not everyone is ready for consciousness at the same time. The call to individuation comes when it comes, and no external force can manufacture readiness. You may be the catalyst, but you are not responsible for another person's response to what you catalyze. The shadow projection, what they see in you. Let's go deeper into the specific content of these projections, because understanding what people unconsciously see when they stare at you will liberate you from taking their reactions personally. Remember, projection is the process of attributing our unintegrated qualities to others. What someone projects onto you tells you everything about their internal landscape and nothing about your objective reality. The spiritual commitment projection. Many people began spiritual seeking at some point, perhaps in adolescence or during a crisis, or after reading a transformative book. They felt the call to depth, to meaning beyond materialism, to authentic relationship with the divine. But this call was costly. It demanded time, energy, discomfort, social misunderstanding. Gradually, they compromised. They kept the spiritual vocabulary, but abandoned the practice. They identified as spiritual but not religious, but stopped doing the inner work that spirituality actually requires. When they encounter you, their unconscious recognizes someone who did not abandon the path. You carry the evidence of sustained commitment, the commitment to meditation even when it was boring, to shadow work even when it was excruciating, to solitude even when it felt like exile. This commitment is written in your energy field, and their abandoned commitment projects itself onto you. They see in you the person they might have become if they had not taken the more comfortable route. This projection can manifest as idealization. You're so spiritual, so evolved, or as subtle hostility. You're probably judging me for not being as dedicated. Both are projections. The idealization protects them from having to own their own spiritual potential. If you are special, chosen, different, then they are off the hook. The hostility protects them from the guilt of their own choices if you are judgmental, and then their withdrawal from the path was justified self-protection. The emotional honesty projection. Another common projection involves emotional authenticity. The chosen one has typically been forced through suffering to develop emotional literacy. You learn to sit with grief without numbing it, to acknowledge anger without weaponizing it, to experience joy without clinging to it. This emotional fluency is rare in a culture that teaches emotional bypass through productivity, positivity, and performance. When someone who has spent decades suppressing their authentic feelings encounters you, they unconsciously sense your emotional transparency. Even if you are not actively emotive, there is a quality of groundedness that comes from knowing your inner landscape. Their projection activates. This person knows how to feel. This person has accessed the grief, rage, fear I have locked away. This can be profoundly threatening because it suggests that those locked away emotions are accessible, that the vault they have guarded could be opened. The stare in this context is the ego's reconnaissance mission. If I get closer to this person, will my own emotions become uncontrollable? Will proximity to their authenticity destabilize my carefully managed emotional life? The silence is the decision to maintain distance, to observe from a safe range without risking contamination by emotional truth. The self-knowledge projection. Perhaps the most potent projection is around self-knowledge. The individuation process is fundamentally about knowing oneself, not the idealized self, not the persona, but the actual totality of who you are, including the shadow. This knowing is not narcissistic self-absorption. It is the sober, compassionate recognition of one's patterns, wounds, gifts, and limitations. You have been forced to know yourself because God removed every external distraction and positioned you in extended solitude. In that solitude, you could not avoid yourself. You had to confront the ways you self-sabotage, the trauma patterns you repeat, the beliefs that limit you, the gifts you have denied. This confrontation was not pleasant, but it was liberating. Self-knowledge, even when painful, is freedom because it allows choice. What we do not know about ourselves controls us from the shadows. When someone who has avoided self-knowledge encounters you, their unconscious perceives this quality of self-awareness, and it triggers deep ambivalence. Part of them craves what you have, the freedom that comes from knowing yourself so thoroughly that external validation becomes secondary. But another part fears the price of that knowledge, the descent required to obtain it, the shattering of comfortable illusions. The projection manifests as an assumption that you can see them as clearly as you see yourself. This is why people often feel transparent around you, even when you are not actively analyzing them. They project their own potential for self-knowledge onto you, imagining that your clear seeing of yourself extends to clear seeing of them. Sometimes this is accurate. Self-knowledge does sharpen perception of others. But often, the discomfort people feel is simply their own disowned self-knowledge, trying to break through into consciousness. The synchronistic encounter. Why now? Why Jung's concept of synchronicity adds another layer to understanding these strange encounters. Synchronicity is meaningful coincidence, the occurrence of events that are not causally connected, but are connected through meaning. When someone stares at you in inexplicable silence, you are often witnessing synchronicity in action. The universe has arranged this encounter at precisely the moment when that person's unconscious is ripening toward potential change. They were not consciously seeking you. They did not decide rationally that today they would encounter someone who would challenge their psychological defenses. But the self, operating according to its own timing beyond ego's awareness, orchestrated this meeting. Perhaps they are on the verge of a life transition. Perhaps their current way of being has become unbearable, even if they have not consciously acknowledged this. Perhaps some recent loss, disappointment, or unexpected joy has created a crack in their defensive structure. Into this moment of unconscious readiness you appear, not as savior or guru, but as mirror, as reminder, as possibility. Your presence becomes the external catalyst for an internal process that was already beginning. Jung emphasized that synchronicities often occur at moments of high psychic charge, during transitions, crises, or periods of intense inner work. The person staring may be in such a moment without realizing it. This explains why the encounter feels so loaded with unspoken significance. It is significant, but the significance is more for them than for you. They are meeting an aspect of their own unlived potential, their own disowned wholeness. Your role is not to force awareness or to save them from their unconsciousness. Your role is simply to be authentically yourself, allowing the synchronicity to work its magic or not, according to the individual's readiness. Some will turn away from the encounter, retreating back into familiar patterns. The glimpse of what they could become is too threatening, the cost of change too high. They will rationalize you away, finding reasons why you are different, why your path is not available to them, why their current life is sufficient. This is not failure, it is simply where they are in their process. Others will be haunted by the encounter. Days, weeks, even months later, they will remember the feeling of being in your presence. Something will have been activated that they cannot name, a restlessness with their current self, a hunger for depth they thought they had successfully suppressed. These individuals may return, circling back into your orbit when readiness has matured. Or they may begin their own individuation journey independently, your brief encounter having served as the initial spark. If this resonates with your experience of walking through the world, feeling perpetually misunderstood, yet strangely impactful, recognize that you are participating in something far larger than personal interaction. You are serving the collective unconscious as a symbol of integration. Like this insight, so the algorithm knows that depth still matters in an age of superficiality. The caretaker complex, your shadow around others. Discomfort, now we must turn the lens back on you, chosen one, because your response to being stared at and met with silence reveals your own shadow material that still requires integration. Jung taught that we often develop what he called complexes, emotionally charged patterns that operate autonomously, hijacking our responses and decisions without conscious awareness. For the empath, the star seed, the chosen one who has been trained through suffering to be hyper-aware of others' emotional states, the caretaker complex is almost universal. The caretaker complex manifests as a compulsive need to manage others' comfort levels. When you walk into a room and sense the tension your presence creates, what is your first impulse? For most chosen ones, it is to shrink, to soften, to perform a version of yourself that will alleviate the discomfort. You might become overly friendly, engaging in cheerful small talk that contradicts the depth you actually embody. You might downplay your insights, pretending to be more conventional than you are. You might even leave the space entirely, removing the problem yourself so that equilibrium can be restored. This impulse is not kindness, it is a trauma response. Somewhere in your history you learned that your authentic presence was too much, too intense, too different. Perhaps as a child you learned to read the emotional temperature of your home and adjust yourself accordingly to prevent conflict or abandonment. Perhaps in relationships, you discovered that full authenticity led to rejection. Perhaps in spiritual communities, you found that depth was welcomed in theory but punished in practice when it revealed others' superficiality. These experiences created a complex, a psychological pattern that now operates automatically. When tension arises in response to your presence, the caretaker complex activates, flooding you with anxiety and the conviction that you must do something to fix others' discomfort. This is where shadow work becomes critical, because the caretaker impulse, while appearing virtuous, actually contains several disowned elements. Shadow element 1. The fear of your own power. When you compulsively manage others' reactions, you are unconsciously managing your own fear of the power you actually carry. You have integrated aspects of the psyche that grant genuine authority. The authority of someone who has descended and returned, who has faced the underworld and retrieved the treasure. But power is uncomfortable for the empath who has been taught that taking up space is selfish, that having impact is aggressive, that standing in your truth is arrogant. So you have disowned your power, pushing it into the shadow, and the caretaker complex is the mechanism that keeps it there. Every time you shrink to accommodate others' discomfort, you are unconsciously choosing smallness over sovereignty. This is not humility. True humility is knowing exactly who you are, including your gifts and capacities, and using them in service without attachment to outcome. False humility is pretending to be less than you are to make others comfortable. Shadow element 2. The arrogance of responsibility. The caretaker complex also contains a hidden arrogance, though this may seem counterintuitive. When you believe it is your job to manage others' emotional states, you are unconsciously assuming a level of power and responsibility that is actually grandiose. You are in effect saying, their psychological process is my responsibility. Their comfort depends on my behavior. I have the power to make or break their inner state. This is inflation disguised as service. Jung warned extensively about inflation, the state where the ego identifies with archetypal energies and loses its proper boundaries. The deflated version of inflation is self-diminishment, but the mechanism is the same. Confusion about what is actually yours to carry. Another person's individuation journey is theirs, their shadow work, their readiness for consciousness, their response to the synchronicities the universe arranges. These are not your responsibility. When you compulsively caretake, you are attempting to short-circuit another person's necessary encounter with their own psyche. You are unconsciously trying to prevent them from experiencing the very discomfort that might catalyze growth. This is not love. It is control disguised as compassion. True compassion allows people to struggle with what they need to struggle with, holding space without rescuing, witnessing without fixing. Shadow element. 3. The addiction to being needed. The deepest shadow element in the caretaker complex is often an addiction to being needed. If your value is contingent on managing others' emotional states, then you have a vested interest in their remaining emotionally dependent. This creates a perverse dynamic where you unconsciously seek out people who need caretaking, relationships where your role is to stabilize, situations where you are the one who holds it together. This addiction to being needed stems from a core wound around intrinsic worth. Somewhere, you internalize the belief that you are only valuable when you are useful, only lovable when you are serving. This belief is a lie, but it operates powerfully from the shadow until it is brought into consciousness and interrogated. The truth is, your worth is inherent, not earned. You do not need to justify your existence by managing others' inner lives. Integrating these shadow elements requires a radical shift in how you relate to others' discomfort. Instead of seeing their silence and stares as a problem you must solve, you must learn to see them as information about where they are in their process. Their discomfort is not about you. It is about the collision between their current self-concept and the possibility you represent. This collision is sacred. It is the friction that can ignite transformation. Your assignment now is to practice what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. This means resisting the impulse to collapse into either pole, neither shrinking to accommodate nor inflating into superiority. Instead, you remain centered in your own sovereignty, present but not intrusive, open but not needy. You allow the silence to exist without filling it. You allow the stare to land without deflecting it. You trust that whatever is happening in the other person's psyche is exactly what needs to happen, and that your role is witness, not rescuer. This is extraordinarily difficult for the empath because it feels like abandonment. The caretaker complex will scream that you are being cold, selfish, uncaring, but this is the complex defending it.